Okay, well, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone. My name is Carol Kraus, and I'm the Assistant Director of Student Services for the School of Architecture at the University of Notre Dame. We are so very glad to have you here with us this evening to ask your questions about our program, ask your questions about our school. And with me this evening, I have one of our wonderful faculty members, as well as two of our students. And I'll give them all an opportunity to introduce themselves as well. Professor Mazzoni, would you please go ahead and start?
Yes, so formal, Professor Mazzoni. Hello, everybody. My name is Giuseppe, which is Joseph in Italian. I'm one of the professors in school, and I will be dealing mostly with the people that get admitted for graphic courses in almost every level, except in Rome. So welcome, everybody.
Faith?
Wonderful. Hello, my name is Faith Promozic. I'm from right outside Chicago and came to Notre Dame. I'm currently a fifth year student, meaning I'm graduating this May. And I'm an architecture student, minoring also in sustainability and studio art.
You're up, Luke.
Hi, everybody. My name is Luke Molinelli. I'm also a fifth year student looking to graduate in May. And I'm majoring in architecture with a concentration in furniture design. And I'm from outside of New York City.
Wonderful. Thank you all very much for being with us this evening. For those of you participating, we're running this sort of as, it's called a webinar, where the Giuseppe and Faith and Luke and I will be able to speak to you, but we will not hear your questions if you ask them. If you'd like to be able to ask questions, please click on either the chat or the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and that will give you an opportunity to type out your questions, and we'll read through those and answer them as best as we can. In the meantime, I'd like to tell you a little bit about our school. The School of Architecture at the University of Notre Dame has been in existence for about a little over 120 years. We are what we would consider a mid-sized School of Architecture with a total student population within the School of Architecture of about 200 students among all 5 levels of our undergraduate program. Our program is a 5-year Bachelor of Architecture curriculum program, which meets the educational requirements for licensure if you intend to become a licensed architect. And if you have questions about that, we welcome those questions as well. And as part of the curriculum, our students in the 3rd year spend a year abroad in Italy, in Rome, at our Rome Global Gateway. It's a very wonderful experience, and I'm sure that Luke and Faith will have great stories to tell about their experience there as well. That's the quick overview of the program. I'm certain that most of you have either attended one of our more formal sessions about our program and our curriculum, and if you have not, I'd be happy to have a chat with you later to give you a more detailed overview of our curriculum. If you'd like to just reach out to me, my name is Carol Kraus. My email is ckraus@nd.edu, but if you look on the School of Architecture website, you'll be able to find me. My job is to serve as academic advisor for the undergraduate students. So it'll be easy for you to find me on the school's webpage. And now, if you have any questions, please drop them into the Q&A or to the chat. In the meantime, while we wait for your questions to come forward, I'd like to start by asking our panelists a couple of questions about their experiences in our program. Faith and Luke, this one's out for you guys. Why don't you tell us a little bit about why you chose to come to Notre Dame?
I can start on that. Well, if you can see behind Luke, you can see there's 2 watercolor paintings on the wall. And that pretty much sums up something that makes Notre Dame really unique, and that we really have a unique perception of beauty and how aesthetically our architecture can contribute to our societies. And that's something, coming out of high school, interested in art, that definitely drew me to the program and sets Notre Dame apart. And one of the ways that they accomplish this with the program is having an emphasis on hand rendering and drawing, which is where I actually started and met Giuseppe in our very first graphics class. And since then, you know, you've been able to see throughout the whole program how we've really been able to grow as artists and as architects, and how the buildings that we create would really be something that would contribute to any city in a beautiful way. And so that's really what drew me to the program.
Yeah, and so my ND story is I was looking at a bunch of different architecture schools when applying. My dad actually is a graduate of the Notre Dame architecture program. And while I was discovering different schools, like Faith said, one of the key components was learning how to hand draw and hand draft, and learning that as a base. And you can always learn computers, but it's just a fundamental ability to be able to get your ideas across on pen and paper very quickly and very effectively. And I think that's one of the best aspects of the Notre Dame architecture program.
Thank you, guys. So there, a question did come in, and kind of goes along with this, is how does the emphasis on hand rendering translate to the more computer-based professional world?
I can talk about this one as well. As you know, a high school student, that was always something that interested me as well. How do you get into the digital world in terms of artistic representation? And so at Notre Dame, there definitely is a push to learn both ends of the spectrum, to be able to be proficient in the programs that you need to get into when you start your career, but also having that foundation in hand drawing. So, you know, as you progress and learn the skills in tandem with it, you realize that there's different points in the design process that lend themselves to each of that. So now at this point where most of us in our year are graduating, I feel like the vast majority of us feel very prepared in all senses, both with digital programs as well as hand representation.
Yeah, I would like to double also on that one, because I'm one of the person who teach those classes both by hand and digital render. And I mean, I think it's still very important to be able to render by hand, because many times starting directly with digital application, it starts to become difficult to actually produce a final product that corresponds to architecture. Because I mean, as architects, we, for example, in the moment in which we create a 3D model, it's not just a massing or 3D model per se, but a 3D model that needs to correspond to a lot of information required in a project, like plan, section, elevations. So it is required to make a model based on those 2D information that are developed first. In many cases, I saw sometimes in other schools, there is a different approach where sometimes a 3D model is created first, and then all the other drawings are created in a second moment, not matching. So there are those issues. You need to take in consideration what you create as an architect needs to get built. So the way in which it appears needs to be translated perfectly in 2D drawings, which are the ones that are used by builders to actually put in place your ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to build off of that, again, learning how to design a building doesn't necessarily correspond with putting it into graphic programs in the computer. You can always make something in the computer, and but you're going to need to change that. And like Giuseppe said, it has to correspond. It has to be able to be built, and that kind of knowledge you gain from the classes and learning the basics before handling something more complex like computer graphic programs.
Yeah, because it's important to take in consideration, even if we put emphasis on hand graphics and work, it's not that we don't do computers. We do that, but we arrive to them after all the students are able to actually proficiently create works by hand. That makes things quite faster for all of you, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you guys so very much. Can you talk a little bit about internships and post-graduation job opportunities?
Yeah, I would say Notre Dame does a really great job with allowing students to have those opportunities for internships and then jobs after graduation. every year, the School of Architecture hosts a career fair and invites a good amount of firms, probably in the tens, almost 100 firms probably, but it feels like 100 at least. But they all are aware of Notre Dame's program and the kind of work that we as students produce and what our skill sets are. So the list of firms is cater to the kind of student that Notre Dame encourages, the kind of student that Notre Dame educates and encourages to pursue what they want to in architecture. So a lot of the firms will have internship offer opportunities and full-time positions. A lot of times firms will offer an internship typically around juniors and fourth years, but also to sophomores as well, in hopes of, getting to know them, teaching them a bit more about the profession and hoping to hire them full-time. So you make those connections beginning sophomore year, as early as that.
Yeah, and the great thing about the career fair is at Notre Dame, we have this, this type of architecture that we really admire and celebrate, like classical traditions, vernacular traditions. And the great thing about these firms that the school has relationships with and invites to the career fair is that you actually get to go out into the world and work on those kind of buildings. And I think that's something you can't really get at a lot of other universities. In terms of just getting those opportunities and interviewing with the firms and getting in contact with them, it's really made pretty simple, and the professors are also great assets in helping you get those together and figure out the best place to belong. And yeah, like Luke said, the career fair this year is very well attended. We had lots of people interested in talking to us, lots of places to learn about all over the country. And so it's just a great opportunity.
And the career fair process went well for you both, I think, this year. So can you share with the firms that you are expecting to go to? So our career fair just happened about 2 weeks ago. With Luke and Faith, the firms that you are expecting to go to for your post-graduation employment, did you do internships with those same firms in your other years?
We're in our final week of considering, so we haven't really picked firms yet, and there's still a few people, but many of them that I'm considering and have interviewed with, yes. And the great thing is you already have those relationships with the people that you're speaking to or are hiring you, and you have a good idea what their office is like as well. And I know a good amount of people who have had good internship experiences have gone on to work there.
Absolutely. There are plenty of firms that I've interviewed with before, and while I may not have an internship with them, that relationship you build, it continues to build each year in career fair. So I still am working on deciding what firm I'm going to end up in, but one of the firms in consideration is a firm that I interned with. And I can say that given our classmates as well, both those who have accepted offers and those who have are still deciding, all of them, or at least most of them, have the firm that they interned with in their consideration. So.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing that. I can say that we have been very successful in having our students be placed into positions. That's kind of a bad way to phrase that. Our students are earning positions at firms upon graduation. In the last 8 years that I've been with the School of Architecture, we have had at or very close to 100% placement among students who are graduating. So students are graduating and getting jobs. So if there are any parents who might be on the thing here, don't worry. We expect that your student will get a job when they graduate. So let's shift focus a little bit and talk a little bit about Rome, because there are a couple of questions here about specifically the study of Italian and whether you felt that was a good preparation for you. And then if you would talk a little bit about the Rome experience from the student perspective. Now, I know, Giuseppe, you haven't studied in Rome in our program from the student perspective, but perhaps you can give a little talk about Italy as we
Yes. Do you want to start with the program in Rome, or do you want me to start?
Why don't we have you, Giuseppe, talk a little bit about Italy, and then we'll shift to the students' discussion about Rome. And if you specifically, students can talk about your experience with the Italian language courses that you had to take before you went.
Okay, so well, Italian culture is, let's say, pretty close to American, but there are some substantial differences in that also change in Italy itself. I mean, I am from southern Italy, not from Sicily. Not there is anything bad about it. It's just that every time that I say southern Italy, automatically people ask me, "Oh, you're from Sicily?" Something like, no. I'm from the peninsula. And I actually not been there for quite some time, but I studied architecture. I was born in Italy and I studied architecture in Italy, and then I came here at Notre Dame. The major differences that you may find, maybe it's mostly due to the fact that Italian people can get very easygoing in comparison to American one, especially in terms of working and similar, something like, okay, there's tomorrow, you can think about it later. And so let's say it's a bit more relaxed, the atmosphere from that point of view. Although keep in mind that, however, you will be in an environment where your professors will talk to you in English and you will interact with other people, of course, in English. So even some of the faculty, with the exception of a few, some of the faculty in Rome are also from the United States, that they just moved there. So don't think that it will be more slacking working there, because it will be as hard as it can be. Yeah, not that it's hard, but I mean, don't think it's just, oh yeah, 1 year of vacation. But yeah, a lot of people I heard in the past, not from Faith and Luke, but other people that I knew before coming to Notre Dame that went to Italy for studying, they found it quite difficult adapting to the food, because not everybody likes it. They said, "Oh, this is not like the Italian food that I had at home." But yeah, mostly those things. Something like, I do like Italy. I lived in Italy for a very long time, for 30 years, but I don't want to go back to Italy. That's why Luke was laughing at last, because for me it's kind of like a touchy subject. Something like, I don't like Italy as much. I mean, I had my share. It's enough.
Well, Giuseppe may not want to go back to Italy, but I would go back in a heartbeat. It was really a wonderful experience. In terms of the question about Italian language, learning that, Luke and I had different experiences, and you have different options in the way you learn, to the extent that you learn Italian, and the role that it plays while you're there. I personally, because I had a very busy schedule with 2 minors, my major, I opted to take a 6-credit Italian, or I think it was a 5-credit 1 semester course in Italian. So it was a very intensive learning course. And I found that really did adequately prepare me. But having wanted an experience where I could speak more with the Italians there, make friends with them, I also listened to some podcasts in my free time, and read some books in Italian as well. And with that, I was able to make Italian friends and have that experience, order my food in Italian, and be able to interact with locals easily. And I just think it's one of those things where you get, if you want to get a lot out of it, you can, but it's definitely, you can get by with just some basics as well.
Yeah, so I took the typical route, which is sophomore year. We have a 3-credit course, both in the fall and spring semester. And those were really great in getting the basics of your Italian in place. And then once you get to Rome, you have the option to take Italian classes when in Rome as well. And I opted to do that. And I think in conjunction with actually going out and speaking with people in Italian, you get the immersion that you need to feel comfortable in a language. So I remember around probably end of October, beginning of November, I had an interaction with an individual who is Italian, and from start to finish, we had a conversation in Italian, and he didn't stop and switch to English because he heard my accent or anything like that. And so I would encourage you to try to become as immersed as possible, because it's a different experience than being somebody who can't speak Italian, and you get to feel like Rome is more of your home. But you can absolutely get by with the required courses that Notre Dame provides.
Well, great. Thank you, guys. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about your actual experience in Rome? What kind of things that you did course-wise? Did you get to spend time traveling any other parts of Europe, etc.?
Yeah, sure. I can talk about that a little bit. So my course load in Rome, I intentionally took a little bit of a lighter course load than I would typically when I was on campus, and that was just to give me some time to do the travel outside to different countries and to really enjoy the city as well. And so while I was there, I was able to travel to Greece and to Austria and various places around Italy as well, over spring break and weekends and over fall break. And that was really a fulfilling experience, having those outside travel, but being in Rome as well. Like, you'll never see every part of the city, even if you stay there for 10 years. There's so much to study there, both architecturally, but just to explore as well. And the villa is a great home base there. It's pretty newly renovated, and it's a great place to spend time with your friends. And the neighborhood itself is just always felt safe and welcoming, and just a very good place to go home for a year.
Yeah, it was an amazing experience, and it's a balance, learning about Rome and feeling like you belong in the city, but also traveling and seeing as much of Europe as you can. But I think the program lends to doing that. We have class trips that are with the School of Architecture, and we went to Tuscany and the Veneto, Venice, in northern Italy. We were going to see southern Italy and Sicily, but we were sent home because of the pandemic. So, but you guys will get that trip as well if you decide to come to Notre Dame. And that's something I would love to go back and explore. But yeah, in terms of places that I traveled, a couple of my friends and I were pretty ambitious. So not to list them all, but yeah, we saw Germany and Austria, Hungary, England, France, and then one of my friends and I, we made a trip to Greece and Egypt and Israel as well. And it's a really great opportunity, being in Europe, to have the proximity to other areas of the world that might be harder once you have to cross the Atlantic. So it was a really great experience. And again, Rome is a great home base as well. And you can, it's a great feeling when you come back from a trip and you see the Colosseum and you feel like, oh, I'm home. So it's one of the unique experiences that the architecture program provides.
One of the great advantages you may have in being in Rome is that most of the buildings that you will study, you will have a chance to see them directly. So when you have lectures and stuff on specific buildings from different periods that can go from, let's say, ancient Rome until the Baroque, even contemporary, besides reading about it or listen about it in a lecture, you can go directly on site and look at them. And a good opportunity in periods like spring break, when you have a chance, something like a few days off from school, is also going around, like both Faith and Luke mentioned. There are some of the current students that are in Rome. They sent me a picture that they went in Paris during, actually was, I think, during the winter break, because when they were with me in Graphics One, we worked on a project on the Sainte-Chapelle in Paris. So during the break, they went on the site that we studied and we worked on, taking pictures of what they actually studied here in South Bend. So keep in mind also that the distance is as much smaller in Europe than they are in the United States. I mean, Italy itself is almost as big as the state of Minnesota, just for giving you an idea. But everything is much more packed. So it can be really convenient, although in such a smaller dimension, there are people that talk very different language and culturally are very, very different.
Yeah, just very quickly off of that, Giuseppe mentioned classes and how we're on site usually, even during studio, which is the main design course that you're working on. We always visit the sites we're working in. A lot of it takes place in either nearby in the neighborhood or somewhere else in the city of Rome. So, and then of course, architectural history and your sketching and watercoloring classes, you're always out exploring the city. So it's not like you're stuck in classrooms all day, wishing that you could be gallivanting around Rome.
Did you guys mention, sorry, I was typing question responses in the chat as well. So I sort of tuned out a little bit. I'm so sorry. But did you mention that from the Rome Global Gateway where the students study, you can actually see the Colosseum? It's only about a block, 2 blocks. It's quite an impressive space. I was just there earlier this month. And it's really incredible to just be able to look out the office windows and there's the Colosseum. It's 2,000 plus year structure that you'll study, and then there it is right there. It's really incredible.
Yeah, and you can see it from the roof terrace as well, which is like beautiful plants and some seating up there as well. And that was one of my favorite places to go and study because you're right out there with Mediterranean climate around you and you get to see the Colosseum just from the top of the building. It's very beautiful.
Yeah, for a little bit of context, in Rome, there's the villa that Notre Dame has there, which is where you stay and live, and that's where your rooms are. And then it's only a block or 2 away. It's a very quick walk to the Global Gateway, which has all the classroom spaces and studios. And in both spots, they have roof terraces where you can see the Colosseum and see the city. And each of them are very unique and lovely to explore and be there with.
So let's shift back to campus a little bit. There are a couple of questions about class sizes and courses that you'll take within the architecture program, electives, and concentrations. So would you guys like to talk a little bit about those different areas?
I can say something about the class sizes, and it depends. It depends by the nature of the class. If you have a class that is more like a seminar, usually based on the number of students in every year, you may have something like everybody together or eventually into sections like building tech or history of architecture. Usually they work like that. But any other class that contains some sort of application, then it is divided in smaller groups. Because the studios, for example, they vary again by the number of students, but they go from a maximum, from a minimum of 12 to a maximum of 14 or 16 students per section. And so those students work with one professor, and usually there are at least 2 TAs. In graphics classes with me, for example, this year we have 2 sections of 25 students each, but we have, together with me, there are also 9 TAs. So usually we have 1 TA that takes care of a group of students that again can vary from 5 to 7. It never happened that are more than 7 students in a group. But so in that way, we can keep a very good control of the number and the quality of the work that the students produce, because we can control in every step by step what's going on between me again and the TA, because the TAs are constantly there with the students. I just a bit roam around because I try to check everybody. But usually all the professors in school, all of us are always available, even outside the class time with questions and things, because especially for studios, it always happens that there are questions outside class.
Yeah, and in terms of electives, concentrations, the School of Architecture offers 3 concentrations, I believe, and that's architectural practice and enterprise, which is everything related to the business side of architecture. Furniture design, which Luke is in, I'm sure could talk more about, and then preservation and restoration, which is everything related to keeping historic buildings beautiful and maintained, and how an architect might be involved in that process. But outside of that as well, you also have the opportunity to take either second majors or minors that complement your interests or something related to architecture. So if you have a language that you want to pursue, a special interest that you want to continue taking classes on, or just something that, you find yourself taking a lot of classes and it becomes a major or minor, that's definitely something that the most of the people that I know in the program are involved in. If not, they're involved in a concentration, and they offer a great opportunity to take classes outside of the School of Architecture as well. And within the School of Architecture, there's tons of really interesting electives as well. And one of those that I really enjoyed was Habitat for Humanity elective, in which it was combined with a studio class in which we actually got to work with Habitat for Humanity to design and build a house pretty close to campus. And there are all these opportunities to get involved in things like that, to learn more about different aspects of things that you're interested in. And all of them are great experiences.
Luke, did you have any experience in any electives outside of the school? I know Faith has, and I'll let her talk about those because those are very exciting. But Luke, did you have that experience as well, taking some electives outside of the school?
Yeah, so I can say, at least for me, that my electives tended to be more earlier in school. As of now, I'm mainly focusing on thesis and stuff. But I encourage people to take electives outside of the school and pursue things that you want to pursue. And it's always good. You'll have your course requirements and stuff as well, but yeah, there's opportunity to do it. And you can also, again, like go into the concentrations or different minors that you want to do, or you can just take different classes, especially in the end of the school. In your time at Notre Dame, it's always good to explore. Maybe there's a ceramics class that you want to do, or take a music lesson. There's always that opportunity, and it gives you a break from kind of the concentration on architecture.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny that you mentioned the ceramics, because I know Faith had taken that. So that's thanks for taking her story.
No, yeah, ceramics it's related to my studio art minor, but the great thing that I've had with that is the opportunity to try all different sorts of art classes, and I never would have happened on ceramics if I didn't do that. And since then I've taken 4 semesters of it because it's just become one of my passions. And it's actually something that's, fused beautifully with architecture. I was able to participate in a fellowship program that allowed me to travel to do studies on ceramics and architecture, as well as to incorporate that into my sustainability minor as well, researching aspects of what make it more sustainable. And so that's another thing that really sets Notre Dame apart. If you have these interests, these driving forces that you're genuinely curious about, there will be routes for you to explore those things. And whether that's in the classroom or outside of it, there's always opportunities.
Okay. So there are a couple of questions about related to free time on campus. So questions like, how much free time do architecture students typically have on campus? Or do any students that you know of participate in sports teams, or is the program too intense to do that? So I welcome you to weigh in on your thoughts about free time. And if you can speak to any of your students that you know of that have participated in sports teams.
Yeah, absolutely. So with free time, architecture is obviously a time-intensive study. And I think it's a rite of passage, learning how to manage your time and making sure that you get studio work done, but also enjoying your time at Notre Dame and on campus. And I think freshman and sophomore year, it definitely it's important to balance the two. So in terms of classes freshman and sophomore year, I would say that I don't know about quantifying the hours, but the classes each week were a pretty good balance. And beginning sophomore year, you have studio in the afternoons, 1:15 to 5. So you tend to have more time in the mornings or more time in the weekends. But in terms of pursuing sports or any sort of clubs or any sort of outside activities, it's absolutely doable. I personally was in a band here at Notre Dame, and it's a lot of time to rehearse for bands and stuff, but I found it pretty manageable with architecture as well. And then, of course, there are the football games, and that's always a great opportunity. You don't want to be working on a project during a football game. You probably won't. It's like a built-in break, to enjoy game day and really bond with your classmates and the Notre Dame community.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it is
definitely.
something. Oh, sorry, go on, Faith, go on.
I was just saying that I agree. And it's like, you work hard while you're in studio, but then you can just, enjoy the time that you're not in it as well. And everyone has a different way that they balance that, but I've never heard somebody pass up on a football game to work on their project. So go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry, what I wanted to say is that, of course, there is a chance to rest, but in the first year, maybe in the second, when there is a studio, it's just a matter of getting used at the type of work and how you can organize yourself. But that becomes very important. It takes some time to get used to it. It's not something that you start immediately, because in comparison to other topics that you may study in college, architecture contains most of the classes contain a very graphic component. And when you work on something that is graphic in nature, it's not necessarily something that you do once and it's perfect. It is something that you may need to work more than once, especially if there are applications like what will happen in the freshman year with Graphics 1 and Graphic 2. Maybe the results may be not perfect from the very beginning. So if you have time, when students have time, students tend to rework on an assignment. So if they realize there was a mistake, they need to restart it from the very beginning. So it just, be sure that the time to dedicate to it, you really pay attention to what you are doing. In studios, it can be this is something like get exponentially, not worse, but something like the very first semester, especially in the fall semester of your sophomore year, it just takes some time to get used to the balance, because in this case, you work on a design. So a design is something that evolves constantly, and sometimes may change, not drastically, but it may change when you are going very close to a deadline. And not because the professor goes crazy, the professor goes crazy, make you change everything. It's just because you yourself are doing something and learning while you are doing it. So you may think, oh, the idea that I had at the very beginning might have become even better if I do those modifications. So again, it's something that you need to learn. And it's possible to do sports if you balance your other activities, if you balance yourself properly. Because, of course, dedication and things. I mean, Luca is in the band. I was in the swim team when I was studying architecture. So it was a bit tough, but I mean, something can be done. So.
Yeah, and even if it's not an organized sport, I know it might be tough to do. If you're recruited for a sport, that can be a bit of a challenge just because of the level of dedication required. But definitely there's a lot of club sports and club activities. And then even if you aren't in a club, I know that I would often play pickup basketball at the Rock or Duncan Student Center, and you have those opportunities as well. So it's all about finding the balance of working on your projects and balancing time with your friends.
Thank you all. Giuseppe, are there things that the students can be thinking about this summer or as they prepare to come to Notre Dame in the fall?
Just enjoy yourself.
Okay, perfect.
Look, one of the things that we usually, the school is known for as one of the many rendering techniques is watercolor. Sometimes students can get a bit intimidated with the first application on watercolor. One thing that I may suggest, if you have time, maybe try a couple of applications. They don't need to be perfect, but just start to get used to the material, to the using the brush and such. But more importantly, if you have time, try to sketch. It doesn't matter what you do. Kind of like try to dedicate, especially when it's summer, now that the school is still going on for all of you attending. When you're done with school, try to dedicate at least 30 minutes per day sketching whatever you want. It doesn't need to be, say, high subject, something like, oh yeah, I can take a sculpture and do that. No, anything that you can see. Because in order to become proficient in drawing, the only way to do that is just practicing over and over. That's it.
Do you have any helpful hints, Faith or Luke?
Yeah, I'd echo what Giuseppe said, sketching and taking that time, but do take some time to just relax as well, because you did the hard part. You got into Notre Dame, which is an incredible, incredible feat. And now is the time to really get excited about that, to pursue, what your life might be like here, get ready. And there's a lot that goes into that as well. So make some time for that too.
And keep in mind that there are many different techniques that you may use. I mean, I don't think that drawing means doing something like, oh, those drawings look like a picture, something like it's so realistic. There are many different styles. So you don't necessarily need to go for something like realistic. But what is important is that in the moment in which you will go to work in a firm and you will be put in charge of dealing directly with the client, having a chance to listen to what the clients want, and in front of the client providing sketches that can be understood, let's be clear, that is very, very important. And that's why we always put emphasis on hand application in school, because your job will be to give materiality to ideas that you have in your mind. So being good, improving your skills in drawing, it's essential, because that's the language that you will be using.
Absolutely. And I think, like Giuseppe said, practicing outside and doing it with something maybe not even related to architecture is always great too. I'm very interested in graphic design and that kind of thing. So it's always nice to explore that and develop that skill, but outside of the realm of architecture. And then even within your projects, drawing and watercolor rendering, there's plenty of other ways that you can create beautiful projects. So I encourage you to explore those options, and it's not like you have to do it one way.
And just to be sure, it's not that I'm telling all of you need to do stuff during the summer. Keep in mind that all the courses, especially from the freshman year, they are starting assuming that we will start from scratch, from zero. So it's not that anybody expect that you will have already, oh yeah, you are already a master in drawing, you are a master in using watercolor or something. Nobody expect that. It's just for you, for starting to learn what are the tools that will be the tools for your future job.
Well, thank you all so very much for your questions. I know technically our time is done, but another question just came in, and I thought it was, if we can have just maybe one last little statement. The question is about what made you choose Notre Dame? Why do you think Notre Dame is special? And if you have a favorite experience that you've had at architecture at Notre Dame. And then we'll make that the last question and we'll say goodbye.
Let the two of you reply to this. It's more related to you than it's related to me.
Yeah, I think I said something along the lines when we started out, but the reason I chose Notre Dame, again, having the perspective of my dad, who's also a practicing architect and graduating from here, and seeing how other schools don't necessarily at least start out with that fundamental aspect of learning to draw and design by hand. I think that's really what sets Notre Dame apart. And looking at architecture that's been around our community for so long, and finding ways to preserve and do new things, but not in a way that is unintentional or that would maybe hurt a community. We're all about designing architecture that enhances a community. And I think that's one of the core features about Notre Dame is the human aspect of architecture and how we design for the people that we're making this building for, and not designing for ourselves for our own personal reasons. And then a favorite experience in architecture school, I would have to say, would be the trip to Tuscany was really incredible. We saw Siena and Florence and smaller cities like San Gimignano and Montepulciano, and just having our professors are so knowledgeable and just taking us around the city and pointing out each and everything about the city that you probably, I didn't even know Montepulciano existed before coming to school, and this medieval Italian town that has all these towers. And it was just a very enriching experience to learn about a new place, and especially for the first time being in that place. And you get that opportunity, especially in Rome, but also in school and at campus itself. So that's what makes Notre Dame special to me.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Luke said. I think that Notre Dame is a place where you go to learn about how to improve the world around you, whatever major you're in, and architecture certainly achieves that. We come out of here wanting to build beautiful buildings for beautiful cities and to make the lives of the people that we serve better. And doing that in a really unique way that's informed by history and respects the vernacular and all of the different aspects of architecture in the United States and abroad that make them the places that they are. And it's a beautiful approach to learning architecture. And in regards to my favorite experience, it would probably be that Habitat for Humanity house that I designed. Working with some of my classmates to design a house that contributes to the community that I'm a part of was really fulfilling. And it's exciting to think that after we graduate, we'll have the opportunity to continue to do that as well.
And I'm not sure that was clear. But one of our studios, in fact, Faith, were you in that studio as well, Luke?
I was in the studio, but I took the class after and was helping on some of the builds. So
we have students who have designed a house that's actually being built in a community here in South Bend. So it's a very cool real world application of what they're learning in the classroom. And with that, we are out of time. If you have any questions at all, we welcome you to reach out. We'd be happy to answer any of your other follow-up questions. In the meantime, we hope you'll take good care and consideration in whether you decide to accept the offer of admission. We would love to have you. We're very excited to have you. And we hope to see you in the fall. Thank you all so very much. And Luke, Faith, and Giuseppe, thank you so very much for your time this evening. Your answers and responses were very thoughtful, and I'm very grateful to have spent this evening with you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Congratulations, everybody.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. I will see you in the fall.